The revolution will now be televised.
Sweet, I gotta eat. With my hustle turbo, never gon' fall. Let it be known. Ain't nothing sweet about the heat. Let it be known when the doors low, then the guns blow. Ain't nothing sweet, I gotta eat. With my hustle turbo, never gon' fall. Let it be known.
I ain't spitting white lies, pumping niggas full of smoke. I'm on that block, I'm getting green, I'm pumping white bars of coke. Making broke niggas rich, teaching novice how to pitch. I made that switch, make yours. Matter of fact, fall back and forth. I grind with a cause, daddy, money's my motivation. I'm a rapper by choice, a hustler by occupation. And my street profession, niggas call me Connect. And hustlers worldwide, show that man respect. Hustlers worldwide, for that reason I collect. See, that feeling's mutual, I never deal with that usual suspect. A snitch nigga's always on deck to put your business on the fence, take cassette. Nevertheless, I put.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Delgados.
We are live on the set of the Delgados podcast. Today, my partner in crime, Eric, is not with us, but we have a very, very, very special guest today. If you're into watches and watch culture, you know who this man is. If you're not, and you don't know who this man is and you want to know more about watches, this is a great place to start. I'm here with the one and only Roman Sharf.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm not that special. Maybe one very would have been enough, but very, 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 I think is a little much. But I do love watches. I've been into watches for 20-some years, and if you want to talk watches, you got the right guy.
Absolutely. And we're going to jump right into this. So you migrated here from the Soviet Union. When you came here, you didn't know much English. Your dad made the choice to bring you guys over here so you guys could have a better life. And I feel like you've taken full advantage and made a great life for yourself. You talked about that song, The Man in the Mirror, and you really had to look at yourself and do some self-reflection and really evaluate and think about how you were going to build yourself up in this country and how you were going to build up your brand. Tell us a little bit about how you got your start in this industry, Roman.
I mean, I'll fast forward past every job that I held starting at the age of 13, past the military, past my corporate career. It was during my corporate career where I was flying pretty high, I would say, right, in terms of corporate careers go, 26, VP in a major bank right here in the city, actually. And guy approached me, goes, hey, you know about all this computer stuff. I'm like, what's a little bit more complex than that? I guess you can say so. And mind you, this is Klondike. This is the e-commerce is being born. eBay's just born, right? It's an opportunity is limitless at this point. And he's like, I'm going to give you a few watches because I bought this watches from this guy before for myself. He's like, I'm going to give you a bunch of watches. Here's your cost. Throw them up on eBay online and sell them, make a profit. My response was like, who the hell is going to buy $10,000 watches online? It was my wife at the time that said, it may not be a bad idea. Well, we got to listen to him. You've been married how long now? So you know the game.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. And as they say, the rest is history. About 2.5 years later, now mind you, I had a responsibility. I had just had a son born. And I said, you know what? I'm making X at the bank. The minute I can get to 1.5 of what I'm making at the bank, doing my business, I'll be done. And as I said, the rest is history. Website was born. E-commerce was just being born. It was literally me and a dozen other guys online in the entire world selling watches online. So the biggest issue I had was growing pains, right? Finding enough merchandise, having enough money to have merchandise. I started the business with $12,000. Once I went full time, I had about 60,000 in inventory. That's nothing in the watch world, right? So I made do, and I kind of scrapped and grew and did what I had to do and got to where I am. Never stopped working since I came to this country, to be fair.
Now, you made it sound so simple, right? And what I have to say about making it where you are, and what I really pick up about you is like when I watch your video and just the way you run your whole business is how you carry yourself with integrity. Your word is your bond, how you stand on your word. Because obviously, the amount of inventory that people send to you, the amount of inventory that you're responsible for, It's, you know, astronomical amounts of cash. God forbid something should go wrong and a piece gets stolen, a piece gets lost, whatever happens. You're the kind of guy who's going to stand on business and make sure that whoever sent you that product is whole.
Got to pay your bills. We're in an industry which is very, very much handshake still. In today's day and age of modern technology, it's still all about the handshake. It's still about your reputation. And, you know, you can't buy reputation, just like you can't buy experience or health, right? So you have to sort of keep that mindset of your word is your bond in order to be successful in this business. Because the minute your reputation is tarnished just a little bit, and this goes on a B2B side, dealings with other dealers, as well as the consumer side, right? So one of the biggest issue I had is that 9 out of 10 transactions that took place probably in the first 5 years of being in business, because it was so new, was convincing the client on the other end that they're not going to get a brick in the box. And mind you, today we got social media, we got YouTube, we got people know you who you are. People can see inside your business when you're running a reality style TV show on YouTube. But back then, the only thing you really had to fall back on it is feedback on eBay. Like I would tell people literally, hey, look, I got references. You can talk to clients that have bought from me, but a lot of these clients want to stay private also. So it was very, very difficult. And eventually, you know, then e-commerce went full-blown circle, reviews online and things of that nature. But first 5 years, it was tough. It was really, really tough. And same went for the business side, because when I approached a lot of dealers out there, and mind you, back then, this was, the AVs were kings. They ruled the world. They ruled the manufacturers. They ruled everything around it, right? It was the authorized dealers.
They were gods in the game.
They were. And I would approach these dealers and be like, hey, listen, there's this new thing called the internet. I can take a lot of your stuff. I can put it online and sell it and then pay you. And they looked at me like I was stupid. Like, what are you talking about?
Like you were nuts.
Internet, what are you talking about? He's like, this is never going to work. There was one man that helped me out. And, you know, I consider him sort of like the godfather to me. His name is Danny Godberg, also the owner of 1916 Company. Well, it was Watchbox. Then they combined all the stores. I came into his office with this whole beautiful presentation, Excel spreadsheet, graphs, this, that. I mean, the whole to-do. And after he looked at it for 5 minutes, he's like, so what do you need? I said, I don't have money, right? He's like, so he turns over to one of his guys and goes, you know what, give this kid $350,000 in credit for 30 days. At the time, I had $60,000 in inventory, and this man just said, trusted me, and said,
By quadruple.
I got a good
You
feeling.
only had 60K.
You can go in my Bolt and pick up 350 grand worth of stuff, and you don't have to pay me for 30 days. And back then, anything you slapped online, it would just fly.
It just moved.
Exactly. So, you know, he was the only one that really bought into the whole idea of luxury and e-commerce. And look at it today, right? Now, it's no longer the ADs that are kings. It's the manufacturers, some of the manufacturers that are king, and it's the secondary dealers that are kings. We're the ones that control the market today in the sense of setting that market. A lot of people make the mistake when they ask the question, what is this watch worth? Well, the value of the watch is not what you see it online for at a store anywhere else, because the line between secondary and primary is pretty much merged, right? There's a big blur in that line. And it's really what a secondary dealer is willing to pay for that watch. That's the real value, keeping in mind the margin that we work on.
So, Roman, a lot of my viewers had this question. They had a couple of price points that they wanted me to ask you. They're novice, you know, they don't have a watch collection yet, but they want to get involved. They want to get an elementary piece and then move up from there. If you only have, and I'm talking you personally with your taste, you know, and the experience that you have, if you only had $5K, what kind of watch are you buying and why?
One of the hardest questions that we get asked, and by we I mean my entire team, my sales team, every single day is that, hey, I have a budget, what do I buy? What we do, and this is what I've trained my entire sales team to do, and I've done it on my own, when I was on my own out of my basement, is I had a client that came to me one time and said, hey, and the guy was a marketing specialist. He ran those seminars. I mean, we're going back in the day where, you know, he would run a seminar for a couple of thousand people and then sell 6 CD sets, right? Like, remember those sets of CDs you used to buy that would teach you about marketing?
Sure.
And he said, Roman, I'm going to give you one advice, and that's all you'll ever need. He said, educate your consumer to a point where they would feel stupid to buy anywhere else but you, regardless of price, within reason, right? And that stuck with me. That's what I taught my entire sales team to do. So when that question comes in, the very first thing we say is hey, look, I've always said one thing: buy what you like first and foremost, within the means that you can afford. So it doesn't matter what I like, right? And if I do make suggestions, I'll be honest and say, well, I'm biased because this happens to be my favorite brand, or this happens to be my favorite design or complication. But I asked people, I said, look, so long as you're able to break down a purchase, and it doesn't necessarily just go for watches either, but as long as you can break down a purchase based on things that are important to you, and ask yourself a few basic questions. A, what is important to me? Today's day and age, the number one reason people buy an expensive watch is flex. And I tell people there's nothing wrong with that. My very first watch was a Rolex. I paid $1,000 to a buddy of mine that owned a pawn shop in Atlantic City. My Rolex walked into the room 5 minutes before I did. Everybody, I got a Rolex.
What
on, right?
kind of Rolex was it?
It was some old Datejust, some old 4-digit Datejust. It was beat up. It was
some old 1970s model?
But it said Rolex on it.
Sure.
That's all that. It had the Jubilee bracelet, so everybody knew that it was a Rolex, right? And I made sure everybody knew it was a Rolex. This is before me being in the business. But I tell people what's important to you. Then you look at things like durability, right? Hey, how are you going to wear this watch? If it's an everyday watch, you want something durable. You're going to walk into door handles. You're going to put your hand down on your desk. You're going to bump into people. Second thing, you look at history. Then you look at horology. You look at specific complications. What's important to you? What's useful? At the end of the day, all these things were made as a tool, right, back in the day. So perhaps you're a traveler and you want a dual time watch. You ask yourself a few of those basic questions. And then you say, okay, and now this is my price range. Now, based on that, I can make a recommendation. So when you hit me with a $5,000 price tag, I'm going to ask you those questions. And based on you and whoever's listening right now, if you answer all those questions in your head and you say to yourself, okay, this is what's important to me, it's a lot easier to make that decision. Otherwise, you have to also consider that you call into my office and you get a salesperson on the phone. Is that salesperson biased? Of course he is. He wants to sell you something. And usually, yeah, I have hundreds of watches in stock, but he's going to try and sell you something that we have, right? My guys do know that you get the client what they want first and foremost, but oftentimes it's like, hey, we have this, this, and that. And there is sales involved, right? So a salesperson can sway you one way or the other. You walk into any shop on 47th Street, try to buy a watch, they're going to stick you with what they want to sell you, right? So ask those questions and do your homework. So there is no answer to the question of what's a good watch for $5,000. It's really about what's important to you. I'll tell you the usual suspects. People will reach for a Rolex, right? They'll reach for, now you can pick up a decent two-tone Rolex, a bit older, and around that price range. They'll reach for an Omega Speedy, right? These are usually, they'll reach for a Tudor. A lot of people will go the Richmond route. They'll look for an IWC, or they'll go LVMH, and they'll look at a Zenith, right? But at the end of the day, it comes down to your personal taste and what's important to you, because $5,000 is a significant purchase. So don't go jumping in, don't be an impulse buyer. Really sit down and say, hey, this is important to me. And eventually, as you start collecting, you get to a certain level. I have on a Moser Streamliner. It's a very low-key watch. Most people won't even know what this is. And people tell me, well, Roman, you have all these tourbillons and Richard Milles and all that stuff. Why don't you wear that? I'm at a level or a point in my life as a collector, because I am a collector too in heart, right? I'm still a watch geek first and foremost. I get to a level where I'm wearing this watch because flex doesn't matter to me. I'm wearing this watch because I feel this is one of the best organic case bracelet watches out there designed, right? If you look at bracelet watches, integrated bracelet watches, there's not a whole lot of good out there, right? It's since the Perez brothers, no, not the Perez, the Gay brothers, Gay Perez's brothers in French, since they were making bracelets and then got bought over by Rolex, there hasn't been a lot of good out there in terms of bracelets. You have your Nautilus bracelet, you have your Royal Oak bracelet, and it's very difficult to create a bracelet. And to make one that's completely organic shape without a single straight edge, to me, notice I said, to me, this is a flex. And most people will know about this. I don't care about what others feel, how they feel about a watch. I care how I feel about a watch. And the same thing should be done by a consumer. And again, to go back to flex, if you want to flex, I will tell you straight up, there's zero wrong with it. Again, at least 8 out of 10 consumers are going that route first and foremost.
They're going for the flex first.
They want to flex. They want the watch to be recognized. Same way we wear designer clothes, or same way we drive a fancy car.
Now, what is the price point on that piece you have?
These are around 20 grand.
20 grand, okay.
So, question of $5,000, I can always tell you what the general public will go for, but I would at the same time tell you, think about what you want.
Okay. So I ask you this now, you being in the culture and having your finger on the pulse, name some obscure brands that most consumers are not familiar with that you would recommend.
So when it comes to recommending brands, right?
And I'm talking brands that people do not know, like things that you feel are flying under the radar and you know people for a fact are not checking for these.
So as in any industry, there are certain trends that take place. In today's day and age, the trend has been handmade watches, independent watchmakers, right? Guys that are very low production, 50 pieces a year, 20 pieces a year, 30 pieces a year. A semi-recent newcomer was a brand called Ferdinand Berthoud, right? Expensive price points. We're talking $150,000 and up. And the reason I started looking into that brand, it caught my attention by sheer accident. I'm in Geneva. I come out of the bathroom, and I meet a fan that watches our YouTube. And we start talking, hit it off, nice kid, 30 minutes we're talking. And he's like, all right, well, I got an appointment. I said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go see FB. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have an appointment with them. I said, when you get down there, talk to whoever's there if they would have me and my film crew there. I get a WhatsApp 20 minutes later. He's like, I'd love to have you. I go over there, and I've heard of them. I've seen them around. And I also knew that there was an auction. There's an auction in November coming up at Philips where they're selling off their handmade piece. It took them 6 years to make it. Watch is going to go over $2 million, right? So I did a little bit of research, which is what I do. I read and learn every day. And when I found out that FB himself comes from the 1700s, he was the master watchmaker to the French royal court. He was the master watchmaker to the French Royal Navy. He was one of the best when it came to chronometry because back then they relied on a watch or a chronometer to get across seas, right? We didn't have iPhones back then. And when I read his history and I realized that Chopard were the one that revived it, and again, I'm going from my perspective, what's important to me, right? So there's the history piece. History for me is number one. So there's the little history piece, right? Then there's the quality and the high horology. And I noticed some of the pieces they made are really, really high horology. And I said to myself, wait a minute, I kind of like this brand based on the fact that it's so historical and based on the fact of the quality of the work that they do, low production, and the fact that they're backed by Chopard. And people are saying, why is that important? Watch industry is still a business. You have a lot of these new up-and-coming independents. They don't have the runway. They don't have the funds behind them to be able to produce more, to be able to produce on a larger scale, right? They're highly dependent on consumers to buy their watches, which is why they have a 5-year waiting list on some of them. They're unobtainium. And I said, well, Chopard's got money, which means Chopard is doing this for the same important reasons that I like the brand, and that is historical value behind it. To Chopard, that brand is like a toy. You know what I mean? Chopard is a multi-million-dollar company. Because they have the runway, I know this brand is going to be successful and it's going to stick around for a while. With the auction coming up at Philips, that's going to solidify that brand. So if while on the secondary you used to be able to pick up those things at a discount, you used to be able to walk into an AD and actually get one, today, good luck. They're gone. They're going to become unobtainium, and rightfully so. So if you price in that price range, that's a brand I encourage people to look at. But other than that, most brands that I'm going to mention, they are known brands. They're just not as popular. I'm going to give you an example. Oldest brand, Blancpain, 1735. 290 years old. Not a flex brand. Now, I remember times where I couldn't keep them in stock. Blancpain, Glashute, some of the Swatch brands that are out there. Breguet. There's people are looking for the next new and best thing in terms of things that are important to me, be it quality of the watch, be it history, etc. And they tend to forget about guys that are not perhaps in the spotlight today, like Audemars Piguet, like Richard Mille. I remember I couldn't give away a Richard Mille because everybody said it was a Frank Miller wannabe, right? I remember the days where you couldn't give away an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, but offshores were the hottest thing in the market. I also remember the days where I couldn't get away with offshore because it was a clunker, right? Because I've been doing this for a little bit. Breguet was amazing, top 5. Ulysse Nardin, top 5. You have to sort of pull back away from the popularity, away from the hype. And before you can start looking for the next new thing, look at the proven brands out there. A brand like Breguet, who was the godfather of all watchmaking. Look at what they did for their 250th anniversary. It's amazing stuff. A brand like Blancpain has been around for 290 years. Their quality, their finishes, their quality of manufacturing is far superior to a lot of these new and up-and-coming brands because they've been doing this for a minute. So you don't necessarily have to go out there and look for the next new thing, next new hot thing, because you know what else I've seen in the business? I've seen brands come up and go out of business. Quick, relatively quick, right? So you can always place a bet on those. If somebody's been around for 150 years, 250 years, it's a pretty good bet that A, you're going to get a quality product. B, they're going to be around in the next 5, 10 years. And remember, trends are like this. It goes up and down, and it changes. we're back to, smaller watches that become hot now, 38 millimeters. 2005, 6, I couldn't give away a 38 millimeter watch because
Nobody
bigger was
wanted a
better.
small watch, right?
Everybody wanted the King Power 48 millimeters, the Audemars Arnold Schwarzenegger, that was a 48 millimeter clunker in rose gold. It weighed 16 pounds, that watch. It was impossible to wear, but everybody wanted it. So keep in mind, and I'm going to go back to the same point I made last time, and that is what sings to you. Don't let others around bias you. Really be true to yourself, and as you said earlier, look in the mirror. Is this me? People always ask me, what do you like? And I'm like, they ask me about diamond watches, and they say, oh, that's so tacky. I'm not a diamond guy. I'm a diamond guy. I love diamond watches. Give me the most iced out Jacob & Co. I love it.
Yeah.
Situationally, right? Depending on where I'm at.
It's interesting that you mentioned Jacob & Co. because some of his pieces, I look at them as novelty pieces. It's not like I would wear those when I'm going to a formal event or, on a daily basis. They don't look like daily wearers, like his Scarface piece. Like when you think about a piece like that, do you often trade pieces like that, or you stay away from those kind of pieces because...
Absolutely not. I have 3 Jacobs in my showcase if you go back to the show right now. I have the newest Bugatti in my showcase.
Okay.
I have the Opera, the Godfather Opera, that's actually supposed to arrive at the show. Somebody's delivering it to me. You look at it as a novelty, and a lot of people will too. And I actually had a conversation with them. Now, I spoke to Jacob. I spoke to his son, Benjamin, who's the CEO of the company, and I told him, I said, people may tend to look at some of these complicated pieces as novelties, like the Bugatti, like the Opera, like the Astronomia. It is your job, in terms of marketing, is to open up people's eyes that this is also very high horology. Jacob, last Watches and Wonders, he released a 4D tourbillon. That's a tourbillon that spins among 4 axes, the only one.
Yeah,
we had our 3Ds, we had our 2Ds.
Taking a look at that piece. It's a crazy piece.
Right? Now, Jacob does it in a flamboyant, avant-garde, crazy Jacob way.
It's over the top.
Over the top. But that's
Right.
what Jacob is. Look at his rainbow tourbillons, right?
For sure.
That's what he's about. But I told him that you have to ensure that people also see the high horology. Because I know who does a lot of his stuff for him. It's Concepto, and there's some of the top, most creative watch movement manufacturers out in Switzerland. And you can come to them with a crazy ass idea, say, I want to make a Bugatti watch and I want to see the engine turning. And I want you to use crystal to do that. Do you know that when they first made the Bugatti watch, when they put the first prototype together, they didn't know if it was going to work or not. Like the guy that did it, when they were doing the research and development, they didn't know if it was going to work. It's so avant-garde, the idea. So again, it's all about the angle and how you look at things. Is Jacob a flex? Oh yeah. I went on the PBD podcast. I wore actually the same watch that Tom Brady wore during the Super Bowl, the yellow rainbow tourbillon.
Okay.
Right? Because I'm that guy. I like diamond watches. I like bling. Again, time and place for everything. I'm not going to wear it to my kid's soccer game. I think the school parents probably be a bit of a shock factor there. But there is a time and place for everything. But don't get past the horological aspect because they have it all. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, it comes back down to visuals, right? It's how people perceive things. And the problem is they're biased by what? They're biased by social media, which is media on steroids. Used to be watch magazines people used to flip through, Watch Time Annual, Watch Time Magazine, that was it. That's what you read. That's what biased you. Today, it's, you open up your phone and because you like watch stuff, it's fed to you on steroids.
On your feed, on your algorithm, that's all you see.
Thank you.
There's so much to choose from. You almost can't decipher what you're interested in
Exactly.
and what you're not interested in. So you really have to kind of do some research and then think about the functionality of the piece and also think about what it says to you. Like, because a watch should say something to you, like when you put something on. So for example, I'm wearing a Jack Turner Meridian. So this watch says something to me and I feel good when I put it on. You know what I mean? It gives me an upscale feeling. I feel elegant when I put it on. And
Without breaking the bank.
Exactly. And every watch that I own in my collection says something to me. Whether it's, this is for playing golf, I'm wearing this to my daughter's soccer game. Each watch speaks to me and says something different. That's how I choose pieces. It's not based on price or based on popularity or how the market is trending. It's just based on personal taste, and then it's based on functionality. Where am I going to wear this to? Am I wearing this to church? Am I wearing this to formal events? Am I wearing this when I'm out on business meetings? So every watch speaks to me and says something different. That being said, how many watches do you have in your personal collection? Zero.
Yeah, I know. It's a shocker when people ask me that.
Explain that to me.
I'll explain. So I've had plenty of watches in my personal collection. After so many years in business, you tend to rack up clientele, right? And mind you, because I started my business out of my basement, I was sales, shipping, receiving, marketing. I was every single department. So
All in one.
All in one. So till this day, I have clients that bought from me 20 years ago when I was working in my basement. They're still on my phone and they still call me. Now,
still hit you.
I help, meaning that I can easily talk to a client and say, okay, my guy Alex or Anna or whoever, Odito, whoever will get back to you, we'll finish out the transaction. But a lot of times I put stuff on and people say, oh, Roman, I want that watch. Now, take me as a collector out of the picture and now bring in a good client that has 7-figure spend with me or sometimes 8-figure spend with me. How do I tell him, no, this is my personal watch, it's not for sale? I tried many times. And my clients simply say, well, I don't give a shit, I want it.
I'm leaving with that piece.
You'll find yourself another.
Right.
The last time this happened is I had an OG 1972 Royal Oak. AP is my favorite brand. It was a 5402 in stainless steel, number 88, very low number on a production. My client took that off my wrist. That's a watch I owned for $17,000. At the time, the market on it was about $50,000. I gave it to him. I went and bought another one. I paid $45,000. Put it on my wrist. It happened again. I bought a third one. I paid $65,000. Put it on my wrist. It happened again. Market shot up to 100. I said, I'm done. During that same time frame, there was a Grubel 4Z that the new one, the sports line they came out with. I really, really liked them. I put it on my wrist. I said, this is what I'm going to keep.
So you bought it for yourself and were like, I'm going to keep this.
I mean, technically, every watch that we buy, I buy for myself, right?
Oh.
I own all the watches that we have. And after that one was taken off my wrist in a short span amount of time, I said, you know what, I'm done. My watch collection consists of my wife's watches. She's got a few. I'm not going to lie. AP is also her favorite brand. Most of her collection consists of Audemars, some Rolex, some fashion watches like Chanel and things of that nature. She buys what she likes, and she loves AP. And I try to buy her like the limited stuff. So all the APs that she has, there were limited edition pieces and stuff like that. But me, I have the luxury and the privilege and the blessing to walk into my office every single morning and say, I'm going to wear that today, or I'm going to wear this today, So for me, I own hundreds of watches, but I own zero.
I get it. You have a huge inventory. You have access to any watch you want, basically, but you don't have any personal connection to any of them. They're all for trade.
I do. That's the problem. Every single day, delivery comes in, right? And we have systems in place where we have this thing called the incoming queue, where the sales team will see everything they came through shipping, everything that it came with, sort of like that intake, right? Process. And then I'll do the unboxings. I want to keep every watch that comes in. And that's the people, that's what I try to explain to people when they say things like, oh, you're a business, you're making money. I said, no, I'm a watch guy first and foremost. I almost want to keep every single watch that comes in on a daily basis. Now, granted, we receive 100 Rolexes a month plus, right? So granted, with Rolex, it gets a little monotonous, right? But sometimes when some of these special things come in, I want to keep them. I want to wear them. I had just the other day, I had a 3940 that came in. It was a beautiful 3940 rose gold. Beautiful condition. I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to put that out there. I'm just going to wear it for a little bit. We go to dinner on the weekend to Princeton, my wife, our friends. And I took a picture with me and my wife, and I posted it on Instagram. It wasn't and the watch was on my wrist. Some guy out of Jersey realized what I was wearing. I get a text while I'm at dinner. It's like, hey, what's up with the 3940? Can I buy it? I was like, I didn't really put it in the system yet. It's not even.
I haven't even.
He's like, I need it. I want it. I want. Guess what? I shipped it out to him on Monday. So it's like I'm saving myself from disappointment by doing so. Is there going to be a time where Roman is going to start growing his personal collection? Perhaps, when perhaps I get closer to an exit with my company, or post the exit with the company, when I'm going to start putting pieces away into my own personal collection, pass it down for generation. I have 3 children, but to be fair, my son, he's been on his own since he was 15 years old. He was running his business since he was 14 and a half. So he bought himself his own Rolex at 16. Everybody started screaming, oh, Daddy bought him a Rolex. No, Daddy didn't buy him shit. He went and bought his own Rolex. Now,
he made it happen.
Now, granted, I called a dealer friend of mine. I said, this is for my son. It's personal. He gave it to him at cost. So he bought a sub for like $6,000, right? Or even less, whatever the dealer's cost was. But he paid it with his own money. He turned 18. I gave him a watch for graduation because it was well-deserved, because he finished with a high GPA. He got into all the schools that he applied to, so he was deserved. And he was a little on the fence because I got him a Royal Oak Chrono. And then the COVID craze hit. Now, mind you, because I called the dealer and said, this is for my son, I got it at cost. My cost on it was not that much. At the time, the watch was trading at about $65,000. I paid $30,000. But again, it went on my son's wrist, and it will never be sold. And then the market went up to like 120, and my son was like, Dad, I'm not comfortable like this. You know, he's in Miami. He's like, I'm not sure if I'm so comfortable. Like, I'm not on that level, considering that the price of the watch is 120 grand. I shouldn't be wearing a 120 grand watch. I told him, I said, son, it's all temporary. I mean, the watch is still trading for 60, 65, right? But
Does he still have the piece?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, he'll never sell it.
Now, let me ask you this, right? You speak about your son. When it is time for Roman to transition and move on to the next phase of his life, is your son interested in taking over the business?
No.
He's not.
He's not. My son has been doing his own business. So I have a rule at my house. I grew up in the room the size of this podcast studio in Brooklyn, New York. This is when we first came to America.
What part of Brooklyn?
Shipshead Bay.
Well, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from Midwood, so we're not too far.
So I was only there for a year. Then my father found a job in Philadelphia, a real job, which paid $15 an hour, but it had health benefits, right? And my father was very adamant about welfare. He said, the organization that brought us over as refugees, they gave you financial aid for 6 months, and after that, you had to go on welfare. My dad said, I'll work 15 jobs. I don't care. I'm not using food stamps. Because back then, it was actually like food stamps. It was like Monopoly money back then.
It was the paper.
It was the paper.
That had the number on
exactly.
it. Yeah.
So he did work 3 jobs, and then he found a job that was closer to what he is, which is an engineer. He worked for a factory that created wrappers for candy bars.
Okay.
And he worked in the maintenance department to maintain the machines that make them, because he was a mechanical engineer. So, you know, as we moved up and as we became more successful, or I became more successful, and one thing I realized is that kids need to understand the value of $1. So the rule in my house, like Shaq said, I have money.
Which is hard nowadays, man, because
it's very hard. When you're growing up poor, and then you get a little bit of money, and you have your own children, you want to give them what you didn't have. But luckily, I have a good woman by my side that we set a rule. You're 15, you're getting a job.
we're living in different times because when we were children, just the things that I asked for, I didn't ask for a MacBook for Christmas. Can I have a MacBook? It's a $1,500 gift. Dad,
We asked for sneakers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If I got a pair of sneakers,
we were happy.
Exactly. Maybe a cartridge for my Atari. These kids today now, the things that they have access to, not only from a technology standpoint, because technology opens them up to the world, right? So they're seeing everything. They have access to things that we didn't have access to. But then just the basic cost of things that they're interested in having for themselves, it's just different. So it's like, how do you as a dad, right? You have resources. You can give your kids whatever you want. How do you say no? You know, I'm not giving you that, or I'm not buying you this for Christmas.
You learn. You learn because you learn what the benefits are. And the benefits of my kids having to get a job at the age of 15, my son is a perfect example of that. Here's a kid that at 14 and a half, we started the conversation when he was thinking about going working at an ice cream shop, typical kid job, right? And then he goes, you know what, Dad, what I really want to do is run my own business. I said, all right, well, I got an idea for you. I said, my business started from eBay. Mom's got some extra purses out there, some shoes she doesn't wear anymore. Throw them up on eBay, we'll split it 50-50. So he threw a couple of things up, made a few $100s. Then he comes and he's like, well, I don't want to do this. I'm like, why, what's up? He's like, well, this isn't a business. I said, you're giving me stuff that you guys already paid for. I'm listing them on eBay, it's selling, I'm keeping half the profit. I didn't buy that. I didn't put any money into that. That's not a business, right? I said, what do you want to do? He's like, he was into sneaker culture big. He goes, I want to sell sneakers. I said, all right. Took $2,000 that he had, and I told him, I said, look, if you're going to do that, I said, I'm going to need a inventory sheet. I'm going to need a balance and loss statement, profit and loss statement, a balance sheet. I need you to keep track of monies and things like that nature. He's like, huh? He's 14 and a half. So I showed him, put it all in Excel for him, just broke it all down for him. He's like, well, why do I need all this? So you'll thank me in a year. A year goes by, that $2,000, I said, give me a balance sheet. He's like, my balance sheet shows $24,000. I said, that's how much equity your business grew in a year. It's a good job, son. The following year was 127. And the year he was graduating high school, he did $1 million in business. And came the question, do I go to college or not? Obviously, right? Because the kid made $250,000 his high school year. When he applied to colleges, he didn't put in essays. He submitted his tax returns, which is another conversation. When first year in his business, when he registered his business, said, well, there's this thing called taxes. He's like, what's that? I'm like, you gotta give the man 35% of what you made.
You'll
He's
find
like,
out
He said,
soon
what?
enough. Yeah.
He was livid. I said, hey, welcome to the real world, right? Fast forward, he goes to Miami, he goes to the University of Miami, he opens up one store location, another store location, third store location. And now he's got a real business on his hand, and he's got an actual plan to create a product. The goal is to grow it to X amount of stores. His role model is Ronnie Fig, Kith, and he wants to be like him. That's his role model in the industry. And he's doing what he needs to do. He's building a brand name. He's got his own media team, social media, YouTube, and things of that nature, and he's doing well for himself. So I feel like if I brought my son in to my business, I would be putting him down.
You'd kill his passion.
I think I'd be killing his passion, killing his motivation, and killing what's probably the most satisfying thing in the world, and that's the fact that, hey, look what I did by working hard and doing what I did. Look how far I've gotten to and where I'm going to be at. You don't want to kill that dream ever.
No.
Jacob, Benjamin, his son, who's now the CEO of Jacob & Co. He was a coffee boy when he was a kid at the company. And then he left for 10 years. He did his own thing. Successful marketing company. Sold that company. And only then he came back to the company as a now experienced badass to run Jacob & Co. That's why their marketing game has been so much better since he took over, because he went out there, got that experience. Is there a world where my son may sell off his sneaker business and say, you know what, Dad, I'm going to come take some of my skill set and apply it to your industry. I'm going to come in and take over, give you a fresh outlook on things? Perhaps. Believe me, I'd be more than happy to. But that's not something I'd ever make him do.
In terms of the business, right?
Loving this, by the way. Cheers. In terms of podcasts, this is all right here.
So in terms of the business that you've built, now, you mentioned you've been with your wife for 23 years. How involved is she in your day-to-day business, or you keep it completely separate?
So, when we got out of college, well, I got out of the military, then went to college. She got out of college, and she got a pretty badass job out of the gate. She landed herself at a consulting company. She went to school for finance and business, so she first landed a job at a consulting company, which, she was probably making 20 or 30% more than the average college kid that got out, or her peers, if you will. She then eventually landed herself at Campbell Soup. She actually specifically worked for Godiva, because at the time Campbell Soup owned Godiva.
Godiva chocolates?
Yeah, but they sold them off later.
Okay.
After. And she got high and fast in corporate just like I did, and we were doing really, really well. And came a point where my business was growing, and we made a family decision, if you will. And that was the hardest decision my wife had to make, and that is to leave corporate and stay home. And I told her, the job that she's done with our 3 children and the household, you couldn't pay me millions of dollars to do what she does. Believe me when I tell her. So for me, it was the most valuable thing. Till this day, she wonders, where would I be if I stayed in that world? What would I have achieved? And the answer from both of us is always the same. Look what we have achieved as a family. Because the job that she did, raising, the inside joke is 4 kids, myself included, right? The family that we built and where our kids are, where our kids are heading, that's worth a lot more than
priceless.
It's priceless. It's worth a lot more than any corporate career. So, one can't help but wonder again. I sometimes wonder, where would I be if I didn't leave the corporate world? Because I was flying pretty high. I had a bright future. But ultimately, I believe in God. So at the end of the day, ultimately, God led us to where we are today, and I strongly believe in that. We're exactly where we're supposed to be, because it's already been written for us. So that's my best explanation when it comes to that. And hey, I like where we are, because when people ask me what my biggest accomplishments are, it's never monetary. I always go back to my family, because my beliefs are pretty simple. Family, God, country. I'm a simple guy.
Family, God, country. So you're a man of faith. You're a man of God.
Yeah.
You believe God has helped you do everything that you've
Believe has been
able
written
to
for us since
accomplish.
the day we were born.
I believe that same thing. I believe that if it's not in God's will for you, it's not going to happen.
If it ain't in the books, it ain't happening.
No, yeah. If it's not in God's will
it
for
is, it is so easy that you get to a certain age, usually when you get a little bit older, and, we tend to say things like, oh, I believe in God early on and things like that. It's not until you really realize that, I have true faith. And when you realize you have true faith, regardless of what religion you are, by the way, it's when you realize what you have true faith is when something goes aside, or something goes good, or something goes bad. Usually something goes bad. And you're able to brush it off saying that, hey, it was meant to be, and I know God is there, and everything will be okay. That's the definition of true faith. It's not about being a fanatic. It's not a girl becoming a nun. It's not about that. It's about your own self, how you view the world, and it's your own faith, how you believe in God. So there's been many tough roads that I had to cross, right? There's been many tough moments in life. And at the end of the day, to have the ability to say it's going to be all right because this was meant to be and God's going to make it right, it makes your life a lot easier, actually, if you think about it.
Oh, it does. And people always ask me about my faith and question my faith, Roman. And they say, you know what? You believe in God so much, David, but yet you go through these things, right? And it's not that because of my faith, I would be protected from trials and tribulations that we all go through. It's that those same trials and tribulations that will break a person who doesn't have faith won't break me. That's what people don't understand, right? My relationship with God doesn't make me immune to what this world throws at me. But what it does is give me the strength to... That's all it does, bro.
So it's here's the other thing is that probably the most common question is, and when it comes to religion, especially from a younger generations, is they say, you really believe that Noah built an ark? You really believe that Jonah spent 3 days inside a whale? I'm like, you guys are making a mistake here. See, you're looking at miracles that in the modern day and age you can't explain, right? You're looking at things that are just a little bit far-fetched. But you don't have to go back to Noah's ark. I said, you can look at everyday miracles. The fact that you wake up every single morning. The birth of your children is a miracle all on its own. There's no need to look for miracles that seem far-fetched in today's day and age, right? So for me, it's like I don't push faith onto anyone. I don't consider myself a fanatic when it comes to faith. I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. And I believe that he's been on my side. Let's just say that.
For sure. And even when things don't look so great in my life, I still believe God is on my side. So it's not only in times of prosperity and times of good favor. It's in times of trouble, in times of turbulence, in times of pain, in times of loss.
This is when atheists become believers. It's just when shit goes wrong. You know what I mean? When something is really, really wrong, that's when people tend to turn to God.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So I love the fact that you lean on your faith and you're a man of God. That's awesome. Now, let me ask you this. Earlier, you made some mentions to your office and you have a team of salespeople. And a lot of entrepreneurs, right, don't actually understand how important it is to pick the right people and put them in position, right, to work with you.
Hardest thing to do.
Because without a team, right, no man is an island by himself. So when you pick a team member specifically, what special qualities or traits do you look for in that person? And this is advice for the entrepreneur that's trying to get started and build a team of people and put people in place that can help their business grow. What do you look for, Roman?
Over time, I learn. With experience, I learn a couple of things. And when it comes to resources, specifically human resources, right? And that is, you need to first at the start, and this is where the growing pains and micromanagement usually comes in. When you're a one-man band, you tend to micromanage when you start hiring people, right? And I early on, I realized that micromanagement will never work. You'll just be doing double the work and you're not taking advantage of the resource that you just hired, right? So first and foremost, throughout the process, the first thing I learned is that, hey, don't micromanage. And then over time, I learned that, look, from a business perspective, you have to have the ability to utilize your resources, i.e. human resources, to the utmost of their ability based on their compensation within a reasonable margin of error. What does that mean? If I got somebody in photography, right, and I know that they're producing this and I'm paying this, I can easily calculate, hey, their output versus what I'm paying and see, hey, am I getting a good deal? It's like making a deal. Am I getting a good deal for my money here? Their margin of error could be 20%. They messed up this picture. No big deal. Now you get to accounting, that margin of error is 0 because you send somebody $100,000 instead of 10. I got a problem. When it comes to shipping, also very, very low margin of error. Why? Because I don't want the guy that bought a $5,000 watch to get the watch that's $500,000, right? So it's all situational based on the departments of your company. As long as you departmentize your company early on, and people say, well, I don't need departments. I got 5 people. I said, it doesn't matter. Because when I started, I was every single department. And what did I do then? I asked myself a question. Where is my time spent better and more valuable to the business? Well, if I'm shipping boxes, that's not a valuable way for me to spend my time. My time is spent more valuable selling. So I hire a shipping guy that makes $10 an hour. Well, those jobs don't exist anymore. It's a lot more now. But I hire a shipping guy that makes X an hour to take that hour away from my day. And then the question becomes, what am I doing with that hour? A lot of entrepreneurs early on make a mistake of, oh, I'm making money, so I'm going to go hire a few more people to do this for me because that's busy work. That's beneath me. But if at the same token they hire those few people to do that busy work and don't take that time to do something else in the business, that's a waste of money. And good old saying, as a business owner, don't work in the business, work on the business. So be conscious of what you're spending your time on. But it's a simple formula. Once again, look at it as a business transaction. Hey, I'm paying this guy X and I'm getting Y from him. Is that worth the money? And is he staying within the acceptable margin of error on the task at hand? And the number one thing is SOPs. That's a military thing called Standard Operating Procedure. You come to my office, from pulling inventory, doing inventory, to shipping boxes, to putting pictures up online, taking product photography. There's a standard operating procedure written out right there on that intranet. This is how you do it. And here's the trick. You find the right people. Of those are going to come in and quickly learn how to press button 1 through 10, and then come back to you and say, well, button 5 kind of sucks. I think it can be done better. I think it can be done more efficient. That's when you start getting extra value out of your human resources. You follow the procedures set forth based on the experience that we've had, but then bring something to the table. And last but not least, the human factor. We're probably one of the very few companies that give people a 90-day evaluation period. They're like, 90 days? You're
It's a long time, 3 months.
I know. And most of the people during the interview will say, well, really, you need 90 days to figure out whether I'm good or not? I'm like, no. You need 90 days to figure out whether this is a place you want to stay for a while. Family environment. Corporate structure, family environment. So my doors, till this day, is always open. The shipping guy can walk into my office, come upstairs. Anybody in my office can walk into my office, ask a question, ask for advice, whether it's personal or business related. I have the chain of command, and there's tasks in place, and I have a COO and a CMO, and I have a sales manager, and I have head of accounting. I have all that. I have head of logistics. But at the end of the day, it's got to be a place where you want to come and work and not just punch the clock. I've had people that came in, and I saw they were just punching the clock. Guess what? They're no longer with us. But what I'm most proud of is that majority of the people that I have with me have been with me 10 years plus. And they would have been with me longer, it's just I didn't have that position just yet. Anna, my first employee I've ever hired, still with me.
Still with you.
20 years later.
Still rocking.
Still rocking. Family, right? And one of the things I value the most is when you have certain employees that you know that once you say something once, you never have to follow up or ask them if they did it. That is the most valuable thing, to have the type of confidence in your employees, right? To be able to ask them something once and not have to worry about a following up and asking, wondering, was it done or not? That's the best thing ever. If I ever ask Anna to do something and then I follow up, hey, did you do that? She'll give me a dirty look. Did you really just ask me that? You already asked me once.
Because she's solid. You know she's getting it done.
And I don't have to worry about it. That's just such a comfortable feeling to have with your employees. Now, in the perfect world, everybody would be like that. But we don't live in a perfect world.
For sure. Now, I ask you this. How does a guy go from a mere $60,000 in inventory to $100 million in annual sales? How did Roman do that?
I'm going to ask you a question that I ask everybody that I hire in the company, especially in sales, anything that has to do with monies. What's the first thing you need to have $1 million? I'll put you on the spot now.
The first thing that I need to have $1 million is belief that I can make it.
Wrong.
Just the faith that I can make it.
Wrong.
Go ahead.
Everybody says hustle, believe, work hard. Those are the usual answers. But the real answer is actually a lot simpler than that. In order to have $1 million, you need to start with $1. Because you can't have $2 without 1. You can't have 3 without 2. And you can't have $1 million without 5. And this is the question I ask my employees for that very reason, to understand that money management is some of the most important things, both in personal life and in business. So what you do is you got to crawl before you walk. And my most famous thing, and the words that I've always lived by, dream big and take small steps to get here. And that doesn't necessarily translate into accounting or finance. Sometimes that translates into a specific career, whether it's in sales, whether it's in logistics, whether it's in marketing, right? Hey, have the big dream. One day I'm going to be the CMO of this company, but you can't get there overnight. You can't have $1 million overnight. You got to take small steps to get here. So that was always been my thing. It's like, hey, I want to be a $100 million plus company. I had that dream when I started my damn company. And I believed in it. And I had to believe, like you said. But I also had the conscious understanding that I'm not going to get there unless I take small steps and plan ahead. Some plans are a week ahead. Some plans are a year ahead. Some days are your daily plan. Until this day, when I walk into my office, you're going to see a small notepad. I'm old school. A small notepad. And a
No
pen.
iPad, a notepad.
Nope. A notepad. A physical notepad with a pen where I put down my daily tasks, where I put down my project plans and everything else. Now, I have the management staff that puts it into all the fancy softwares and keep tracks of these projects, whether they're long-term projects, week-long projects, month-long projects, right? But for me, my day starts with my pad and pen, where I sit down and I literally know that until I cross that line off, it ain't done. And if that's not done, the next thing doesn't get done. It's that simple.
Interesting, because I have a notebook and a pen in the bag that I came here with, and that's where I put all my notes and all my thoughts. And
I keep my pads. I have a box.
same here. I don't throw them out.
Andy Warhol.
I go back to
Andy
them.
Warhol lived like that. Andy Warhol, when he used to paint his daily notes, whatever he did on a daily basis, whether it's a bill or whatever, he used to throw in a box underneath his desk, and then he would seal it for life. Now those boxes, I think they went up for sale for some stupid amounts of money. There could be random shit in there, like bubble gum wrap or something. But I keep all my pads, my notepads. I don't know, it's nostalgic to me. Sometimes I go back to them. Like I go back 5 years and see, what was I working on this day? You know, and it gives me a clear picture. It's cool.
It's interesting that you said you need to start with $1 to make $1 million. I've been in business a long time, all different kinds of businesses, Roman. And what I can tell you, I've seen people start with millions of dollars and still fail and not be able to multiply those millions of dollars. I've seen people with no money become great successes. So it's a little odd for me to accept that concept that first you need $1 to make the million, because I know people that have invested, when I tell you, ungodly amounts of money.
Startups?
Yes, into projects, and these things just don't take off. And it's not that they didn't have the resources, right, to put into the business, because they had the money. What they didn't have was the belief. They never really believed that they can do it. And they never really had a plan to get from point A to B. They thought that because they had money, because I could sink millions of dollars into this project, I'm automatically going to purchase some success. And that's not always the case.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Having a belief, having the motivation, having the hustle and the mindset is certainly very, very, very important. But because of the industry that I'm in, it's very much based on money. The more money, the more inventory we have, usually the bigger sales we have. Not necessarily true. You can make mistakes. You have to have a good team. My buying team is insane. And that's why part of the reason why we're so successful, right? But you also have to be, as you mentioned, millions and millions of dollars, right? People say to me, well, Roman, why don't you go out and get an investor to dump in $50 million into $100 million into industry? You buy up all these watches. I was like, no. I said, you have to be conscious of the fact that there is a threshold. As it is, there's one on the bottom, there's also one at the top. If I'm holding $50 million in inventory today, just because I go to $250 in inventory doesn't mean I'm going to do $500 million. You have to analyze and understand the strength of your businesses or what level you're at. Am I at a level where I can consistently hold? Or better yet, does it really make sense for me to hold $250 million in inventory at this particular level? Probably not. Money costs money, right? So you have to know that, hey, this is where I'm at. I am steadily growing because the business that's flat is dying, right? And right now, my business could probably deal with $100 million in inventory, or it should be 20. And then finance comes in. You got guys out there that will sit there and analyze and say, you know what? Yeah, your sales were higher at 50 million in inventory, but I think you should scale back down to 20 million inventory because your expenses are going to go down at that price level. And you'll end up, after everything, making a little bit more money than while you were holding fit. It's not necessarily always true that more is better. But in our industry, it does come down to the dollar. And that is having the money to buy deals and sell deals.
Now, I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. these super clone watches, the one-of-one fakes, the ones that are so good. Like I was watching a video that came out of Rolex, and one of their watchmakers said, some of these replicas are so sophisticated and the materials are so high quality that even he can't tell. Now with replicas like that floating through the industry, do you see that for you now, someone who knows watches? Obviously, you have a team that inspects your inventory. Have you ever been duped?
No.
Roman's never been duped.
I have a service center. Every single watch goes through a service center, first and foremost, right? Goes through, it gets opened up. I don't care if it's a new watch, not a new watch. I have a qualified watchmaker that's going to open it up and that's going to look at the movement, because the super clones are great until you open the back of the watch and you start looking at the movement, deep into the movement. They've gotten so good that they will even use legitimate parts on the outside, like the rotors.
They'll use real parts, yeah.
Yeah. But if you have a qualified watchmaker looking at this stuff, you'll know. Now, the shitty fakes I can tell from a half a room away.
Sure.
Now, one of the rules of thumb that I have when buying is you protect yourself. You make sure that you have recourse, right? You start there. That doesn't mean you don't do your due diligence, but I start with recourse. And what does that mean? The dealers that I buy from, I have recourse with them. If something is wrong, I put it right back in the box, send it back to me, and get a refund. If I'm buying from the public, I'm protected. You're signing paperwork. You're providing identification. You're doing all those things in order to make sure that, A, if something were to go wrong, have things gone wrong? Many times, but I've always had recourse. And 99.9% of the time, actually I would say 100% of the time, it wasn't done maliciously. I have clients send me watches that they were duped. They had no idea.
Because the clone is so good. It's that good.
Dealers also were duped. And here's the thing, it's a lot easier to get duped within the dealer community. Why? Because when you're walking into a place, you have trust with that individual.
There's faith.
You know what I mean? So if a dealer sells me a watch and that ends up being not real, and I call him up, I know for a fact that he didn't do it maliciously.
He got duped.
Exactly. So that happens. So that's why it's like, yeah, have recourse, but verify. And for us, the verification, it cost me a lot of money. At any given time, I have over $1 million consistently frozen at my service center. What does that mean? Every single watch that comes in goes through there. Sometimes it's just a legit check. Sometimes it's maintenance. Sometimes it's cosmetics. You need to polish the watch, right? But the very first thing is you check the watch. How legit is the watch, the box, the papers, and everything else. Then you go and put it on the machines, make sure the watch is running fine. If it's not, you need to service it. If it's got scratches on it, you buy a pre-owned watch from me, it doesn't look pre-owned. It looks new, right? Stick it up and everything else, because we take care of that. Comes at a cost. Not only the cost of the maintenance itself, but also the time. Because of the volume of watches that I get in, you're always going to have 1 million plus sitting there. And the people are like, well, you get it back pretty fast. I'm like, yeah, but that 1 million is always frozen. That's $1 million that I cannot use at any given time, because it's always consistently frozen. Now, going back to, having your dollar work for you. So, well, Roman, why don't you hire a few more watchmakers? Well, a few more watchmakers cost money. So what did that $1 million costing me sitting there frozen versus hiring 3 more people? And that's the math you start doing, and that's finance.
So people in the industry tell me, David, the guys who make the super clones are basically the same guys who make the real ones. And the real ones, maybe in Switzerland, they'll throw on the crown or the final finishing of the watch. But the same guy that made that super clone made that real one. Is there any validity to that? Is there any truth to that?
No, it's all hearsay. It's a bunch of bullshit. It's you guys that make super clones, and you will never know. And the reason you will never know is the only time you will know is when they get caught. But even if they do get caught, they don't really make a big stink about them either, because think of it, you're the Swiss. And let's say you got some guy who is a professional watchmaker sitting in this barn somewhere in Switzerland in the valley, ordering these parts, and making these super clones. If you're the Swiss industry, do you really want that information out there? Do you really want to shake consumer confidence like that? Hell no. You're going to sweep that under the rug real quick. So anything you hear is bullshit. There's no validity to it. You can't verify it. It could be true, but it could not be. You can't really verify.
Which brings me to my next question. Is the watch industry the biggest rabbit hole in the game?
It's not the watch industry so much as it's the hobby, right?
Okay.
The hobby itself is a rabbit hole. Oftentimes I talk to a new collector who bought his first piece, and I said, I'm sorry. Like, well, why are you apologizing? I said, because you just started going down a very, very slippery slope and a very, very deep rabbit hole.
Right.
when it comes to horology, there's always something new. There's always something exciting. There's always something innovating. There's always the next new design. There's always the next celebrity wearing a particular watch, right? It's like fashion, right? At the end of the day, you're not wearing the same clothes you were wearing 10 years ago, right?
It's trendy. Trends change.
Trends, exactly. So that's why it becomes a rabbit hole. And again, so long as you're in it for the right reason, within the means that you can afford, you're good.
You're good to go.
You're good. It is a slippery hole, rabbit hole, and so be conscious of that, and don't spend beyond your abilities.
We've come to the point of our show where I'd like to recognize our sponsor, Jack Turner Watches. I'm wearing a 1-of-1 18-karat gold Jack Turner Meridian. If you go to the website www.jackturner.com, you will be able to use the code JACK20 for your purchase and receive 20% off on any watch of your choice. I would like to present our guest, Roman, with something from our sponsor that they wanted you to have to take with you.
Gifts. I like getting gifts.
You get gifts. This is from our sponsor, Jack Turner. Roman, this is for you.
All right, so now tell me what I'm looking at. A glove, look at that, and a travel pouch.
Yes, you do, sir.
This unboxing is Ooh, that's funny because I was talking to the gentleman outside. He was wearing a prototype of this watch. I said, "This is really nice."
Correct. They are now in production, and
So tell me about this watch.
Actually, the marketing director for Jack Turner Watches is here, and he's going to let you know a little bit about these timepieces. Jose, let us know a little bit about the piece that he has here.
So this is called the Quantum Axis Tourbillon. It's powered by a Japanese Sakura TY06 movement. It's a custom movement. If you look at the dial, it's got our logo embedded in it. And it's one of many pieces that we're looking to introduce to the line long term.
Fantastic.
So a lot of old school pedigree here in terms of finishes, the skeletonization. I like how your logo is pretty much part of the movement, which is really nice. What's the price point on these?
These retail for $14.99.
I mean, at a first glance, I don't have my loop, but at a first glance, seems like a lot of value. And when you're working within that price point, I've always said that you kind of have to give people value in terms of design and aesthetics. Like you look at this and you say, "Well, this is nice," and it's only $1,500. That's kind of usually the ultimate goal. And I know that in that price range, in the world of, and I hate to use terminology, micro brands, in that world, the people can be very, very brutal. And, the consumer can be very brutal. They will dissect your watch left and right, and they will be super brutal. I don't see anybody having any complaints in this price range for this design. Thank you.
It's a
Appreciate it.
quality piece. You're welcome. Wear
Nice.
it in good health, Roman.
I appreciate it.
We appreciate having you on. And then I'd like to go to our second sponsor for this show, which is Moet and Chandon. We're drinking a Moet Rosé today, one of the world's finest champagnes, if not the world's most recognizable champagne. Thank you, Moet, for sponsoring our show.
Oh, I drink theirs on the regular, so you're preaching to the choir. I'm a champagne guy.
There you go. I'm a
Yeah.
champagne
for
guy
me,
myself.
For me, summertime by
Cheers.
the pool doesn't go without champagne. Cheers. I like a rosé as well.
And that, my friends, is another episode of the Delgados podcast. We were pleased that you could join us today, and we were exceptionally grateful to Roman for showing up today. Thank you so much
for having me.
Roman.
I'm glad I bumped into you at Watch Time. I'm a big people's person, and I don't know. We did a little interview at Watch Time, and I'm like, I kind of like these guys. And he said, "Well, we'll come on the podcast. I happen to be in the city, so thank you for having me."
I appreciate
guys,
you,
thank
brother.
you all for watching.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching, guys. We'll see you soon.